getting it to try and talk direct to the database. The phone app just talks to the server, talks to Tomcat to say, here you are, here's some data, some sensor data that it's picked up, either something that you've typed in, it might be positional data, that it's sort of automatically got your latitude, longitude, it might be any one of the sensors that's built into a phone, but also it can retrieve the data. You can pick up the current status of the light, the current status of your door lock. So you can develop the app so that rather, I mean, we have the app so that it so that it just sort of displayed it on screen in a not particularly great way. But what you might do is sort of build a full-blown app around it. And have something like a Philips Hue controller showing the status of objects around. You can sort of turn on living room lights. Now that's only just a glorification of what you were writing last week. But it was sending a message off to the server saying, set the servo position to be 100. Yeah, you were hard coding it, but you could put a nice little front end on it and have it as a little click button, give it a nice name, and saying that when they click that, then okay, it sets the living room light to be on. And supposedly somebody somewhere is monitoring that to sort of work with. Or you might work with the sort of heating system, again in a similar way. I'll find that on. Honeywell's Evo Home for it. Hive do this now as well, the British Gas sort of thing that links in with it. This one connecting to, in this case again, my home network. Figuring out what's in the different rooms, asking one of those, and I pass it around one of the little radiator thermostats saying what's the temperature in this room to it, and it's currently reporting back. So again, like you were doing in your app, you contacted the server and you said, well, the current value of that sensor value is 20, 200, whatever. Here it's just dressed it up nicely. Saying, okay, well, we've got this, there's a thing in the kitchen radiator there, which is sort of giving the current sort of what it currently temperature is. So the sensor's reporting it's 16.5 in the kitchen. It's set to say, well, if you ever get down, don't let it get less than 5 degrees. That's what the target temperature is to work with. And you put a nice little interface on it to say, okay, well, look, for this kitchen, I want to set the target temperature, and you sort of drag it up to be whatever temperature you want it to go to. Now all that's doing in the background is just taking whatever value you end up with and saying, oh, set that temperature on that node to be 25. Effectively, it's sending a message to the server, kitchen radiator valve 25. And then the radiator valve monitoring that and saying, have I changed? Yes, I have. I'll just open up the valve a bit. I'll just turn the motor to sort of get in there. So I won't, I'll just go back on that. I don't particularly want my kitchen set at 25 degrees while I'm not in there. So those sorts of apps that you've got are only just developments of what you're doing. You've got the basic idea of that contact between the server, sending something and retrieving it. The rest of it is just window dressing. Yeah, people get paid a lot of money for that window dressing. You put a nice sort of interface on the front of it, but they've still got to be able to do this background sending of the data as it goes through. So that might just help you. Those sort of two diagrams may just help you with parts of your assignment on sort of getting your head around what's happening with it. Because questions 1 and 2 are just sort of giving you an idea of how they're linked together. There for it. So in terms of data access, when all these sensors are sending that data off, they're done in a fairly ad hoc sort of, the data's sent in a regular manner, but you're querying them fairly ad hoc. That means that they're doing it at random. My home heating system didn't know that I was just about to get onto that thing there and request what temperature it is, or to adjust the temperature. You want people to be able to interact with it in an ad hoc manner for it. And the query might be based on all sorts of sensory data. Things like the ID for the known resource. You say, tell me the temperature of the kitchen radiator. And it comes back to it. Tell me the status of the light in the living room. Again, so it comes back to you, or change that. It might be based on location. Living room, for example, might consist of a collection of lights. It might be there's a lamp stand, there's a light on the side table, sort of several together, you're just sort of collating them together. It might be based on location in terms of picking up where you are and then deciding what to do in that sort of home. Now again, this could have been part of the assignment, I just had to sort of cut it off, I didn't want to sort of put too much in. But if you're doing a project based in this, what you might have in your app is something that turns the heating on as you get closer. So if you know where the base location of your own home is, and hopefully you do, for that you can get its latitude, longitude, you can get your latitude, longitude of your phone, and have it so that when you get within, say, a kilometre of your house, you send a message to the front room radiator, turn yourself on if it's below a certain temperature. So you're into sort of auto control of it, without you even having to do anything particular, yourself. So the user's just carrying their phone about. So the whole sort of range of query types that you sort of may be working with, or some complex data types. We've just been working with fairly simple ones in that assignment for it. Now, some of this data is long-term and some short-term. Some of it is just sort of, the temperature's currently 5 degrees in the living room, you just asked me for it. Do you want it to remember that? Do you want it to store every single thing inside that database? Because that's currently what we're doing with those sensors. You're reading a value and you're just pushing it out to the database and storing it. Now, not everything needs to be remembered to it. Some of the things are only wanted on demand or published every sort of now and then. So we'll look at short-term publishing of these, the longevity of your data. And that's where we'll look at this other thing called MQTT in future weeks to be able to publish data just for a short-term one. But the sensor data does need to represent that physical world observation and needs to have in it not just the actual value, but perhaps things like units that it's been sort of measured in. Is it morning or afternoon? Are you using a 24-hour clock? Are you sending a temperature? Is it centigrade or Celsius for it? It's no good just saying how far are you from home when you say 5. So is that 5 kilometres? 5 metres? 5 inches? You're right outside the door? It's 5 minutes. It might not be a length of time. It's 5 minutes away for it. So you generally got to sort of say, well, what value are you sending across with these? As well as perhaps that sort of locational data. Perhaps know something, a bit of metadata about your device to know how accurate that is. So when I had that other drawing up before, that's one of the reasons he was sending so much data up, to give an idea that whoever's picking this particular sensor up, that it's being broadcast out to anybody who wants it, an idea of what the accuracy is. It's okay saying that the temperature's, say, 10 degrees. How accurate is that? Is it 10 degrees to the nearest 10? Something, in which case it could be 0 degrees, it could be 20 degrees, that makes a big difference. Or there they've got that sensor accuracy sort of built into it. What time of day might make a difference as well. So, sending off some sensor data, you need, as well as just the actual values, perhaps some sort of indication of what each individual one is. Just sending across 15 and C and 0815, hopefully you're intelligent enough to recognise a time in there. You might recognise that that's a latitude and longitude. Or is it a longitude and latitude? Which way around is it? How familiar are you with longitude and latitude? You know that perhaps they are descriptive of where you are, but not many people can remember One's the angle of move up from the equator, and the other one's the angle of a line that goes through the Greenwich meridian and how far around the Earth you do. I bet 1% of people in here perhaps sort of knew that. You know, not many people know about what longitude and latitude actually is. They know that together they can give you a fixed position on the Earth, but you need to know which one was latitude and which one was longitude for that. So we need to have not just intelligent processing and interpretation of the data, which we'll look at sort of here, but also perhaps some metadata about it, data about the data, to enhance it, to describe what it is. So you might need to send them in JSON or XML. So, because with XML you can sort of describe what each particular reading is. Know that that one's a longitude or a latitude that you're sending through. And there's a lot of data challenges that you've got with your IoT. People are wanting, well, for one thing, perhaps to pick this up in different formats. You're broadcasting out your sensor data, and people perhaps sort of want to pick it up. They may want different formats from different sources and different qualities. So they may say, can you tell me your sensor data? By the way, can you give it me in just comma delimited file? Or can you give it me in XML or JSON? Or can you give it me accurate to the nearest 10 degrees Celsius?